Welcome to The Antidote, Happiness for People Who Can't Stand Positive Thinking, by Oliver Burkeman. In this audiobook, Burkeman challenges the conventional wisdom of relentless positivity and explores how embracing uncertainty, failure, and even negative thinking can lead to a more fulfilling and authentic life. Through a blend of philosophical insights, psychological research, and practical advice, this audiobook offers a refreshing perspective on finding true happiness in an often chaotic world. Chapter 1: The Tyranny of Positive Thinking. In today's society, we are constantly bombarded with the message that we must think positively to achieve happiness. From self-help books to motivational speakers and inspiring memes on social media, the message is clear. If you are not happy, you are simply not thinking positively enough. But what if this insistence on positive thinking is part of the problem rather than the solution? In this first chapter, I want to challenge the belief that happiness can be achieved simply by suppressing negative thoughts and adopting a perpetually optimistic attitude. The premise of positive thinking, which suggests that we should always focus on the best and avoid the worst, can lead to a form of self-deception that is unsustainable in the long term and can be detrimental to our mental well-being. One of the clearest examples of this tyranny of positive thinking is found in the self-help industry. These books, which promise to transform our lives, are often filled with simplistic affirmations and empty advice that do not address the real complexities of life. Instead of recognizing that life is full of uncertainties and challenges, they tell us that we simply need to change our thinking to be happy. This reductionist view is not only unrealistic, but also harmful, as it makes us feel responsible for any unhappiness or failure, suggesting it is our own fault for not being positive enough. Furthermore, the culture of positive thinking can lead us to ignore or suppress our negative emotions, which are a natural and inevitable part of the human experience. Sadness, fear, anxiety, and other negative emotions are not merely obstacles to overcome on the path to happiness. They are important signals that inform us about our needs, desires, and boundaries. By trying to eliminate or ignore them, we are missing a crucial opportunity to learn and grow. Consider, for example, the work of the Stoics. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius do not suggest that we should avoid suffering or pain, but that we should accept these experiences as an integral part of life. For the Stoics, true happiness is found in the ability to maintain serenity and virtue in the face of adversity. Instead of fighting against our negative emotions, we should learn to see them as opportunities to develop our resilience and wisdom. Similarly, the teachings of Buddhism invite us to accept impermanence and dissatisfaction as inevitable aspects of existence. The Buddha taught that suffering is an intrinsic part of life and that only by accepting this truth can we find liberation. Instead of constantly seeking happiness through positive thinking, Buddhism urges us to cultivate mindfulness and compassion towards ourselves and others. Through these and other examples, we will see how accepting uncertainty, insecurity, and even failure can lead us to a richer and more meaningful life. By letting go of the obsession with positive thinking, we can begin to live in a more authentic and fulfilling way. True happiness is not found in eliminating pain and negativity, but in our ability to face and embrace all facets of the human experience. In this chapter, we will explore these ideas further and examine how different philosophies and approaches can offer us a more realistic and enriching perspective on happiness. Oliver Burkeman takes us on a journey that questions the conventional wisdom of positive thinking and invites us to consider that true happiness may not be found in eliminating pain and uncertainty, but in the ability to face them with courage and compassion. Ultimately, happiness is not about avoiding the negative, but about learning to live fully with all aspects of the human experience. Chapter 2: The Power of Negativity. Throughout our lives, we've been taught that negativity is something to avoid at all costs. We're told to focus on the positive, on what we want to achieve, and to keep negative thoughts at bay. However, this approach ignores a fundamental truth about human nature. Negative thoughts, doubts, and fears are inevitable and essential parts of our experience. In this chapter, we will explore how negativity can be a powerful and transformative force in our lives. We will start by examining the history of negative thinking, from ancient philosophers to modern psychologists, and how they have recognized the value of facing and accepting our negative emotions. Consider the Stoic practice of memento mori, which reminds us of our mortality. This practice may seem grim, but in reality, it is a powerful tool for living a fuller life. By remembering that our existence is finite, we are driven to value each moment more and to live more authentically and meaningfully. In the realm of psychology, acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, is a modern approach that also values the acceptance of negative thoughts and feelings. Instead of trying to eliminate them, ACT teaches us to accept these thoughts and to commit our actions toward our deepest values. This approach has proven effective in treating various conditions, from depression to anxiety, and emphasizes the importance of accepting, rather than fighting against, our negativity. We will also examine how negative thinking can be a powerful tool for creativity and innovation. Many of the greatest advancements in science and technology have come from a willingness to question the status quo and to face the possibility of failure. By accepting uncertainty and risk, innovators have been able to explore new ideas and make discoveries that have changed the world. Oliver Burkeman takes us through a series of examples and studies that illustrate how negativity can be a constructive and necessary force in our lives. Through stories of individuals and cultures that have embraced negativity productively, we will see how we can reconfigure our relationship with our negative thoughts and emotions. Instead of seeing negativity as a barrier to happiness, this chapter invites us to consider it as an ally. By accepting and facing our doubts, fears, and anxieties, we can develop greater resilience and a deeper understanding of ourselves. True happiness is not about avoiding the negative, but about learning to live with it and finding meaning and purpose in all our experiences. In summary, the power of negativity lies in its ability to help us grow, innovate, and live more authentically and meaningfully. By reconfiguring our relationship with negativity, we can discover a form of happiness that is more realistic, profound, and sustainable. The science of negativity. One of the most interesting fields in contemporary psychological research is the study of cognitive biases, particularly the negativity bias. This term refers to our tendency to pay more attention to and give more weight to negative experiences compared to positive ones. At first glance, this might seem like a flaw in our cognition, but it actually has a clear evolutionary purpose. It helps us survive. By paying attention to threats and dangers, our ancestors were able to react more quickly to risks in their environment. In the modern world, this negativity bias may seem less useful and even harmful. However, by recognizing its existence and understanding its purpose, we can learn to manage it more effectively. For example, instead of trying to suppress our worries and anxieties, we can use the energy they generate to prepare and plan better. This approach not only makes us more resilient, but also helps us make the most of our cognitive and emotional capacities. In this chapter, we will also analyze how the acceptance of negativity can improve our interpersonal relationships. Research has shown that the strongest and healthiest relationships are not those where everything is always positive, but those where people can face and resolve conflicts constructively. Learning to accept and manage negativity in our relationships can lead to greater intimacy and emotional connection. Finally, we will see how negativity can be a source of inspiration and motivation. Many of the most powerful works of art, literature, and music have arisen from experiences of pain and suffering. By accepting and exploring these emotions, artists have been able to create works that deeply resonate with our own life experiences. Negativity, in this context, is not an obstacle to creativity but a source of depth and authenticity. In conclusion, the power of negativity lies in its ability to enrich our lives in ways that positive thinking simply cannot. By accepting and working with our negative emotions, we can develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and others and live more authentic and meaningful lives. Oliver Burkeman invites us to reconsider our relationship with negativity and discover how it can be a force for good in our lives. Chapter 3: The Paradox of Control. In this third chapter, Oliver Burkeman delves into one of the most deeply ingrained beliefs in modern culture, the illusion of control. From an early age, we are taught that having control over our lives is essential for achieving success and happiness. We strive to plan, organize, and manage every aspect of our existence, believing that this will protect us from uncertainty and failure. However, this obsession with control can often be more harmful than beneficial. One of the key points Burkeman makes is the paradox of control. The more we try to control our lives, the less control we actually have. This paradox manifests in various areas of our lives, from personal relationships to professional careers. By trying to control every detail, we often become more anxious and stressed, and we lose the ability to adapt to unexpected changes. To illustrate this idea, Burkeman discusses the concept of perceived control in psychology. Studies have shown that people who believe they have control over their lives tend to be happier and healthier. However, when this perception of control is threatened, it can lead to heightened levels of stress and anxiety. In other words, the pursuit of absolute control can make us more vulnerable to emotional crises when things don't go as planned. Burkeman invites us to reconsider our relationship with control and explore alternative approaches to managing uncertainty. One of the most effective strategies is radical acceptance, a practice derived from dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. Radical acceptance teaches us to accept reality as it is, without trying to change or control it. This practice does not mean resignation, but a deep acknowledgement that we cannot control everything in our lives. Through examples and studies, Burkeman shows how radical acceptance can improve our mental and emotional health. By accepting uncertainty and impermanence, we can free ourselves from the pressure of having to control every aspect of our existence. This allows us to live more authentically and fully, adapting to changing circumstances with greater flexibility and resilience. Another approach explored in this chapter is the concept of surrender. Inspired by the teachings of Buddhism and other spiritual traditions, surrender involves letting go of our attachment to the outcome and trusting in the flow of life. By practicing surrender, we learn to navigate life with an attitude of openness and curiosity, rather than fear and control. This attitude allows us to find peace and satisfaction even amid uncertainty. Burkeman also analyzes how the culture of efficiency and productivity can exacerbate our obsession with control. In a society that values success measured by tangible achievements and quantifiable results, it is easy to fall into the trap of believing that we must have total control over our lives to be valued and respected. However, this mentality can lead to burnout and a sense of emptiness, as there will always be factors beyond our control that affect our plans and goals. Through personal stories and case studies, this chapter demonstrates that by letting go of the need for control, we can find greater freedom and joy. True security does not come from control, but from the ability to face uncertainty with an open mind and a courageous heart. In conclusion, the paradox of control challenges us to rethink our assumptions about what it means to live a full and satisfying life. By learning to accept uncertainty and let go of our attachment to control, we can discover a more authentic and enriching way of living. Oliver Burkeman guides us on this journey of self-discovery, offering perspectives and practices that can transform our relationship with uncertainty and control. Chapter 4: Freedom in Limitation. In the fourth chapter, Oliver Burkeman delves into an idea that may seem counterintuitive: how embracing our limitations can lead to a more fulfilling and liberated life. In a culture that constantly tells us we can be anything and achieve everything, acknowledging our limitations might appear to be a defeat. However, Burkeman shows that accepting our limitations can be a profound source of freedom and peace. One of the clearest examples of this paradox is the practice of setting clear boundaries in our lives. Rather than trying to do everything and be everything to everyone, we can find greater satisfaction by clearly defining what is most important to us and focusing on those areas. This not only reduces stress and overload, but also allows us to invest our energy and attention in what truly matters. A key concept in this chapter is the antidote to infinitude. In a world where technology gives us access to an infinite amount of information, choices, and opportunities, the ability to set clear limits and accept them becomes a crucial skill. By recognizing that we cannot do everything or know everything, we can focus our attention on what truly matters and find a deeper sense of purpose and satisfaction. Burkeman also explores how limitations can be a source of creativity and innovation. Many of the greatest works of art, literature, and science have emerged from constraints. Limits can force us to think more creatively and find innovative solutions to problems. By accepting our limitations, we can unlock new ways of thinking and acting that lead to surprising achievements. The philosophy of enoughness is another central theme of this chapter. Instead of always seeking more, whether it's more success, more money, or more recognition, the philosophy of enoughness invites us to ask, how much is enough? By defining what is enough for us, we can free ourselves from the trap of endless pursuit and find greater peace and satisfaction in our lives. Oliver Burkeman uses a variety of examples and studies to illustrate these points. From the stories of artists who have created masterpieces under severe restrictions to research on the psychology of choice and satisfaction, he shows us how limitations can be a positive force in our lives. At the end of the chapter, Burkeman challenges us to reconsider our assumptions about freedom and success. Rather than seeing limitations as obstacles to overcome, he invites us to see them as opportunities to deepen our understanding of ourselves and what we truly value. By accepting our limitations, we can find a form of freedom that is more authentic and sustainable. One profound example Burkeman offers is the life of Beethoven, who composed some of his most extraordinary music despite, or perhaps because of, his deafness. This severe limitation forced him to innovate and rethink how he approached music, resulting in compositions that are celebrated for their depth and emotional power. Beethoven's story illustrates how embracing limitations can drive us to achieve greatness in ways we never imagined. Burkeman also discusses the psychological benefits of accepting limitations. He explores how setting realistic goals and boundaries can reduce anxiety and improve mental health. When we acknowledge our limitations, we can stop striving for the impossible and start appreciating what we have achieved and what we can realistically accomplish. This shift in perspective can lead to a more contented and balanced life. Another key point is the societal and cultural dimensions of limitations. Burkeman examines how consumer culture pushes the idea that there are no limits to what we can achieve or acquire, leading to constant dissatisfaction and a sense of inadequacy. By embracing the concept of limits, we can resist these pressures and find satisfaction in sufficiency rather than excess. Burkeman also touches on the environmental implications of embracing limitations. In a world facing ecological crises due to overconsumption and exploitation of resources, recognizing and respecting natural limits is crucial. By adopting a mindset that values sustainability and sufficiency, we can contribute to a healthier planet while also finding personal satisfaction. Ultimately, this chapter encourages us to embrace our human condition with all its inherent limitations. By doing so, we can find a deeper, more lasting form of freedom from the endless pursuit of more and freedom to live a life that is meaningful and true to who we are. In conclusion, the fourth chapter of Oliver Burkeman's book challenges us to see limitations not as barriers but as pathways to a richer, more fulfilling life. By accepting and embracing our limitations, we can find freedom, creativity, and a deeper sense of purpose. Through a combination of personal stories, philosophical insights, and practical advice, Burkeman offers a compelling argument for the beauty and power of limits. Chapter 5: The Myth of Authenticity. In the fifth chapter, Oliver Burkeman tackles one of the most celebrated and yet misunderstood concepts in modern culture: authenticity. In an era where we are constantly urged to be ourselves and to express our true nature, Burkeman invites us to question what it really means to be authentic and whether this relentless pursuit of authenticity is as liberating as it seems. Authenticity, as commonly understood, suggests that there is a true, immutable, and singular version of ourselves that we must discover and express. However, this simplistic view can lead us into a trap: the belief that our identities are fixed and that any deviation from our authentic self is a form of personal betrayal. This perspective can be limiting and often generates unnecessary pressure to conform to a rigid image of who we are. Burkeman argues that authenticity should not be seen as a quest for a fixed essence, but rather as the ability to adapt and change in response to different contexts and experiences. True authenticity, he suggests, involves being aware and honest about our internal complexities and contradictions, accepting that we can be many things at once and that our identity is fluid. A crucial aspect of this chapter is the exploration of how the culture of authenticity can lead to egocentrism and self-absorption. Instead of focusing on how we can contribute to the well-being of others and the world around us, we become obsessed with our own pursuit of authenticity, which can distance us from a fulfilling and meaningful life. To illustrate these points, Burkeman draws on a variety of examples, from psychological studies on identity and self-image to personal stories of individuals who have struggled with the pressure to be authentic. Through these accounts, he shows how the quest for authenticity can be both a source of liberation and internal conflict. Burkeman also explores the role of social context in shaping our identity. He argues that our understanding of ourselves is deeply influenced by our interactions with others and by social expectations and norms. Instead of seeing these influences as constraints, he suggests that they can be opportunities to explore different aspects of our personality and to develop a richer, multifaceted identity. A significant part of this chapter is the discussion of authenticity in relationships. Burkeman posits that the healthiest relationships are not those where we are always completely authentic, but those where we can negotiate and adapt to mutual needs and expectations. Relational authenticity, therefore, involves a willingness to be flexible and to compromise, rather than insisting on an unchanging expression of our true nature. Ultimately, Burkeman invites us to reconsider our obsession with authenticity and to adopt a more nuanced and realistic view of what it means to be truly ourselves. Authenticity, he suggests, is not a goal to be achieved but an ongoing process of self-discovery and adaptation. One key example Burkeman uses is the artist David Bowie, who constantly reinvented himself throughout his career. Bowie's fluid identity allowed him to explore different personas and artistic styles, making his work profoundly impactful. Bowie's life exemplifies how embracing multiple facets of our identity can lead to richer, more authentic self-expression. Burkeman also touches on the psychological impacts of striving for authenticity. He explores how the pressure to be authentic can lead to anxiety and self-doubt, as we struggle to live up to an idealized version of ourselves. By letting go of the need to be a certain way, we can reduce this anxiety and develop a more compassionate and flexible sense of self. Another critical point is the impact of social media on our sense of authenticity. In a world where we curate our online personas, the line between genuine self-expression and performative authenticity can become blurred. Burkeman encourages us to reflect on how we present ourselves online and to seek a balance that feels true to who we are, rather than trying to project a perfect image. In conclusion, Burkeman invites us to embrace the complexity and fluidity of our identities. By doing so, we can free ourselves from the pressure to be a fixed, idealized version of ourselves and find a more genuine and fulfilling way of living. Through a combination of personal anecdotes, psychological insights, and philosophical reflections, Burkeman provides a compelling argument for a more flexible and compassionate approach to authenticity. The psychological and social dimensions of authenticity. In this chapter, Burkeman delves deeper into the psychological and social dimensions of authenticity. He explores how our understanding of ourselves is often shaped by social interactions and cultural norms. This social dimension of authenticity suggests that our sense of self is not isolated but is influenced by our relationships and the society in which we live. Burkeman discusses the concept of social authenticity, where the true self is seen as emerging through social interactions rather than existing in isolation. This perspective acknowledges that our identity is dynamic and evolves through our engagements with others. It challenges the notion that we have a single, unchanging true self that we must discover and express independently of our social context. The role of flexibility in authenticity. Flexibility is a recurring theme in Burkeman's discussion of authenticity. He argues that being rigidly authentic can sometimes be counterproductive. Instead, he suggests that a more flexible approach, where we allow ourselves to adapt and change based on the situation, can lead to a more fulfilling and realistic sense of self. For instance, in professional settings, Being adaptable and responsive to the needs of the moment can be more effective than sticking rigidly to a preconceived notion of authenticity. This flexibility does not mean being inauthentic. Rather, it involves a deeper understanding of the multifaceted nature of our identities and the different roles we play in various contexts. Authenticity and self-compassion. Burkeman emphasizes the importance of self-compassion in the pursuit of authenticity. He suggests that being kind to ourselves when we fall short of our ideals can alleviate the pressure to be perfectly authentic. By practicing self-compassion, we can accept our imperfections and embrace the fluidity of our identity without harsh self-judgment. Authenticity in a digital age. In today's digital age, the pursuit of authenticity takes on new challenges. Social media platforms often encourage performative authenticity, where individuals feel compelled to present an idealized version of themselves. Burkeman discusses how this can create a disconnect between our online personas and our true selves, leading to feelings of inadequacy and stress. He encourages readers to be mindful of how they curate their digital identities and to strive for a balance that reflects their true selves. This involves being honest about our experiences and not succumbing to the pressure to portray a perfect life online. Conclusion. Embracing complexity. In the conclusion of this chapter, Burkeman invites us to embrace the complexity and fluidity of our identities. He argues that true authenticity is not about adhering to a fixed self, but about being open to change and growth. By accepting our multifaceted nature and the influences of our social context, we can live more authentically and connect more deeply with others. Burkeman's insights provide valuable guidance for navigating the complexities of identity and finding true self-expression. Through a combination of personal anecdotes, psychological insights, and philosophical reflections, he offers a compelling argument for a more flexible and compassionate approach to authenticity. Chapter 6. The Wisdom of Insecurity. In this chapter, Oliver Burkeman delves into the concept of insecurity and how, instead of avoiding it, we can embrace it as a source of wisdom and personal growth. Insecurity, in many forms, is an inevitable part of life. We face it in our careers, relationships, and fundamentally, in our perception of ourselves and our place in the world. One of the main points Burkeman makes is that the constant pursuit of security and certainty can be counterproductive. Instead of providing us with a sense of stability, it can lead to a life of constant anxiety and frustration. This pursuit of certainty is a struggle against the very nature of life, which is inherently uncertain and ever-changing. Burkeman draws heavily on the teachings of Alan Watts, a philosopher who argued that true peace and satisfaction come from accepting insecurity. Watts suggests that our need for control and certainty is an illusion that prevents us from living fully in the present. Instead of trying to predict and control all aspects of our lives, Watts urges us to trust in the process of life itself. An example Burkeman uses is the practice of meditation and mindfulness. These practices do not eliminate insecurity, but teach us to live with it more serenely and consciously. By paying attention to the present moment, we can reduce our anxiety about the future and our rumination about the past. Meditation helps us develop a healthier relationship with our mind, allowing us to observe our thoughts and emotions without being consumed by them. Burkeman also explores how the acceptance of insecurity can improve our relationships. Instead of seeking guarantees and certainties in our interactions with others, we can learn to value authenticity and spontaneity. Insecurity in relationships allows us to be more vulnerable and open, deepening our emotional connection and strengthening our bonds. Additionally, insecurity can be a source of creativity and innovation. Many artists, writers, and scientists have found inspiration in uncertainty and chaos. By embracing insecurity, we can open ourselves to new ideas and perspectives that we might not have considered otherwise. Insecurity challenges us to step out of our comfort zone and explore uncharted territories, leading to significant discoveries and advancements. Burkeman differentiates between uncertainty and fear. While uncertainty is a natural part of life, fear is an emotional response that often arises from our resistance to uncertainty. By learning to distinguish between these two states, we can develop greater resilience and the ability to face challenges with more confidence and calm. To conclude, Burkeman invites us to reconsider our relationship with insecurity. Instead of seeing it as an enemy to avoid, we can learn to accept it as an essential part of the human experience. By doing so, we can discover a richer, more meaningful way of living, filled with possibilities and opportunities for personal growth. Burkeman also discusses the concept of psychological security, and how the quest for a safe, predictable mental state can limit our ability to live fully. By exploring examples of cultures and philosophies that embrace insecurity as a natural part of life, Burkeman shows how we can find greater serenity and purpose by accepting impermanence and uncertainty. In summary, the wisdom of insecurity teaches us that true peace and satisfaction do not come from eliminating uncertainty but from learning to live with it fully and consciously. Oliver Burkeman offers perspectives and practices that can help us transform our relationship with insecurity and find greater serenity and purpose in our lives. Chapter 7. The Myth of the Goal. In this chapter, Oliver Burkeman explores the concept of goals and objectives, a cornerstone of our culture of self-help and productivity. From an early age, we are taught to set clear goals and work tirelessly to achieve them, with the promise that reaching our objectives will lead to happiness and success. However, Burkeman challenges this notion, suggesting that an obsession with goals can often be counterproductive. One of Burkeman's central arguments is that focusing exclusively on goals can lead to a stressful and unsatisfying life. When we are always fixated on the future and what we want to achieve, we can lose sight of the present and the experiences that truly matter. This future-oriented mindset can prevent us from enjoying the moment and leave us in a constant state of longing and frustration. To illustrate this point, Burkeman refers to the philosophy of processism, which emphasizes the process over the outcome. According to this philosophy, the value and meaning of our actions lie in the act of doing, not in the final achievement. Adopting a process-oriented mindset can help us find more satisfaction and joy in our daily activities, regardless of whether we reach our goals. Burkeman also delves into the psychology behind goal setting. Studies show that people who focus solely on their goals often experience high levels of stress and anxiety. The pressure to achieve specific goals can lead to feelings of failure and disappointment when things do not go as planned. In contrast, those who focus on the process and enjoy the journey tend to have higher levels of well-being and satisfaction. Moreover, Burkeman addresses the concept of hedonic adaptation, which suggests that the happiness we gain from achieving a goal is usually temporary. Once we achieve what we set out to do, we quickly adapt to our new state and start looking for the next goal, perpetuating a cycle of pursuit and disillusionment. Instead of finding happiness in achieving goals, Burkeman urges us to find meaning and purpose in the process itself. An important aspect of this chapter is the idea of open goals versus closed goals. Closed goals are specific and have a clear endpoint, such as winning a gold medal or getting a promotion. Open goals, on the other hand, are more flexible and oriented toward continuous growth and learning, such as improving a skill or cultivating meaningful relationships. Burkeman suggests that focusing on open goals can be more beneficial for our long-term well-being. Burkeman also introduces the concept of the minimum viable goal. This is the smallest and most manageable version of a goal that still propels us forward, but without the overwhelming pressure of achieving a large and specific objective. The idea is to focus on small steps that lead to gradual and sustainable growth rather than giant leaps that may be unattainable. He also explores how our expectations shape our perception of success and failure. Often, our goals are influenced by external standards and comparisons with others, which can distort our sense of accomplishment. By redefining our expectations and focusing on what we truly value and desire for our lives, we can find greater satisfaction and a sense of purpose. Burkeman touches on the phenomenon of imposter syndrome, which affects many people, especially those who have achieved high levels of success. This syndrome manifests as a persistent feeling of not deserving one's accomplishments and a constant fear of being exposed as a fraud. The fixation on external goals and comparisons can exacerbate these feelings. Burkeman suggests that by focusing on our own path and the process rather than the outcome, we can mitigate these feelings of imposter syndrome and develop greater self-compassion and self-acceptance. Another critical discussion point is the impact of goal obsession on mental health. The relentless pursuit of objectives can lead to emotional and physical exhaustion. Chronic stress associated with the continuous chase of goals can negatively affect our health, increasing the risk of cardiovascular diseases, anxiety, and depression. Burkeman encourages a reconsideration of our priorities and finding a balance between goal pursuit and overall well-being. In conclusion, Burkeman invites us to reconsider our obsession with goals and adopt a more balanced and healthy view of what it means to live a fulfilling and meaningful life. By focusing on the process and finding value in our daily actions, we can free ourselves from the pressure of achieving specific goals and discover a more authentic and satisfying way of living. Instead of constantly chasing specific targets, Burkeman suggests that we should learn to appreciate the journey itself and find fulfillment in the process of continuous growth and development. This perspective not only liberates us from the tyranny of goals, but also allows us to live more consciously, presently, and in harmony with our true priorities and values. Chapter 8: The Beauty of Failure. In this chapter, Oliver Burkeman tackles one of the most feared and avoided aspects of human experience: failure. In a culture that celebrates success and despises failure, it is common to view mistakes and setbacks as signs of weakness or incompetence. However, Burkeman argues that failure can be an invaluable source of learning, growth, and ultimately, authentic success. Burkeman begins by exploring how our aversion to failure can limit us and keep us trapped in our comfort zones. By avoiding the risk of failing, we also avoid opportunities for innovation, learning, and development. History is replete with examples of individuals and organizations that achieved greatness precisely because they were willing to fail and learn from their mistakes. In fact, many scientific and technological advancements have been the result of a series of failures that eventually led to success. To illustrate this point, Burkeman refers to the methodology of trial and error used by inventors like Thomas Edison, who considered each failure a step closer to success. Edison is famous for saying, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This approach to failure as an integral part of the creative process is fundamental to any kind of innovation. Burkeman also delves into the psychology of failure and how our emotional responses to failure can affect our ability to learn from it. Shame, fear, and self-criticism are common reactions to failure, but they can be debilitating if not managed properly. By developing a growth mindset, we can learn to see failure not as a reflection of our worth, but as an opportunity to grow and improve. The concept of resilience is crucial in this context. Resilience is not the ability to avoid failure, but the ability to recover and learn from it. Burkeman suggests that by developing resilience, we can transform failure into a powerful tool for long-term success. This involves changing our perspective on failure and viewing it as a natural and inevitable part of any significant endeavor. Additionally, Burkeman addresses the importance of creating a culture that values learning from failure. In many organizations, the fear of failure can create an environment where people avoid taking risks and experimenting. However, the most innovative organizations are those that foster a culture of openness and learning, where failure is seen as an opportunity to gain valuable insights. A relevant example Burkeman mentions is the "fail fast" approach adopted by many tech companies. Instead of avoiding failure, these companies encourage their employees to experiment and learn quickly from their mistakes. This approach not only accelerates the innovation process, but also creates an environment where employees feel safe to explore new ideas and approaches. In our personal lives, Burkeman encourages us to embrace our imperfections and be kind to ourselves when we fail. Practicing self-compassion can reduce the emotional impact of failure and better prepare us to learn from our experiences. Self-compassion allows us to recognize that failure is a natural part of life and does not define our worth as individuals. Finally, Burkeman invites us to reconsider our relationship with failure and to see it not as an enemy but as an ally in our journey towards growth and authentic success. By embracing the beauty of failure, we can unlock our potential to innovate, learn, and live more fully and authentically. In conclusion, this chapter teaches us that failure is not something to be feared or avoided but an essential part of any meaningful learning and growth process. Oliver Burkeman offers a new perspective on failure, showing us how we can transform our experiences of defeat into valuable opportunities for personal and professional development. Chapter 9: The Paradox of Effort. In this chapter, Oliver Burkeman explores an intriguing paradox: the notion that effort, often seen as essential for success and happiness, can sometimes be counterproductive. In a culture that champions hard work and perseverance, it may seem counterintuitive to suggest that striving too hard can actually lead us away from our goals. However, Burkeman argues that, in many cases, the key to achieving our desires lies in learning to let go and allowing things to unfold naturally. One of the central concepts in this chapter is Wu Wei, a principle from Taoism that translates roughly to non-action or effortless action. Rather than forcing things to happen, Wu Wei suggests that we should align ourselves with the natural flow of events and act spontaneously and effortlessly. This philosophy invites us to reconsider our constant drive to push and strive and to adopt a more relaxed and fluid approach to life. Burkeman uses a variety of examples to illustrate how excessive effort can be counterproductive. In the realm of sports, for instance, athletes who focus too intensely on winning and put too much pressure on themselves often perform worse than those who find a balance and enjoy the process. This observation applies to other aspects of life as well, such as creative work, relationships, and problem solving. Modern psychology supports this idea through concepts like the paradox of control. The more we try to control every aspect of our lives, the more rigid and anxious we become, often leading to poorer outcomes. By learning to let go and trust the process, we can find greater peace and effectiveness in our actions. Burkeman also explores the phenomenon of flow, a mental state described by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, in which individuals are completely immersed in an activity with a sense of focus and enjoyment. Flow typically occurs when we are appropriately challenged and not overly concerned with the outcome. This state of flow is more likely to happen when we are not striving too hard and allow things to happen naturally. The importance of mental and emotional flexibility is another key point in this chapter. Instead of clinging rigidly to our plans and expectations, we should be willing to adapt and change course when necessary. This flexibility allows us to respond more effectively to changing circumstances and to find creative solutions to problems. A real-life example that Burkeman uses is meditation. Many people who try to meditate struggle because they put too much effort into emptying their minds or achieving a perfect state of calm, which often leads to frustration and abandonment of the practice. Experienced meditators understand that effective meditation involves letting go of effort and simply observing whatever arises in the mind without judgment or attachment. Burkeman also examines how our culture of hyperproductivity and constant competition exacerbates our tendency to overexert ourselves. In many work and educational environments, constant performance and achieving tangible results are highly valued, leading to burnout and a sense of emptiness. Burkeman suggests that by learning to value rest, recovery, and reflection, we can find a healthier and more sustainable balance. Furthermore, Burkeman addresses the impact of our cultural beliefs about effort and success. The narrative that hard work always pays off can trap us into overworking and ignoring our emotional and physical needs. By adopting a more balanced perspective, we can recognize that success and happiness often come from a combination of intelligent effort, adequate rest, and acceptance of uncertainty. To conclude, Burkeman invites us to rethink our relationship with effort and to adopt an attitude of greater acceptance and trust in the natural flow of life. By letting go of the need to control and overexert ourselves, we can find a way of living that is more relaxed, effective, and ultimately, more fulfilling. In summary, the paradox of effort teaches us that sometimes, less is more. By learning to let go and allow things to flow, we can find greater peace, joy, and effectiveness in our actions. Oliver Burkeman offers perspectives and practices that can help us transform our relationship with effort and live more fully and authentically. Additional insights on effort and balance. In expanding on the idea of effort, Burkeman discusses the concept of active non-doing. This idea does not imply passivity, but rather a mindful engagement with activities without the attachment to outcomes. By focusing on the present moment and the task at hand, we can achieve a state of balance where our actions are more aligned with our intentions, leading to more meaningful and satisfying results. Burkeman also emphasizes the importance of patience and timing. Often, our culture pushes for immediate results, but understanding that some things take time to develop can relieve unnecessary pressure. Patience allows us to stay committed to our goals without the constant stress of trying to force immediate success. Another key aspect discussed is the role of self-compassion. Being kind to ourselves when we fall short of our goals can mitigate the negative effects of overexertion. By practicing self-compassion, we can maintain a healthier perspective on our efforts and achievements, recognizing that setbacks are a natural part of the journey. Practical applications. Burkeman provides practical advice for applying these insights to everyday life. He suggests incorporating periods of rest and reflection into our routines, allowing ourselves to recharge and gain perspective. This can be as simple as taking regular breaks during work, engaging in activities that bring joy and relaxation, and practicing mindfulness or meditation. In professional settings, Burkeman advocates for creating environments that value innovation and learning over rigid performance metrics. Encouraging experimentation and viewing failures as opportunities for growth can foster a more dynamic and resilient workforce. In personal relationships, he advises embracing flexibility and openness, understanding that the dynamics of relationships are constantly evolving. By being willing to adapt and communicate openly, we can build stronger and more supportive connections. Conclusion. Embracing effortless action. Ultimately, Burkeman's exploration of the paradox of effort invites us to adopt a more holistic and balanced approach to life. By letting go of the need for constant control and learning to trust in the natural flow of events, we can achieve a state of effortless action, where our efforts are more aligned with our true desires and values. This chapter encourages us to rethink our cultural narratives about effort and success and to find a path that integrates intelligent effort with acceptance, patience, and self-compassion. Through a combination of philosophical insights, psychological research, and practical advice, Burkeman provides a comprehensive guide to transforming our relationship with effort and achieving a more fulfilling and balanced life. Chapter 10. The Art of Not Worrying. In the final chapter, Oliver Burkeman addresses a universal concern: worry. Worry is a natural response to uncertainty and perceived risks, but when it becomes chronic, it can be debilitating. Burkeman explores strategies to reduce and manage worry, enabling us to live more fully and satisfactorily. Burkeman starts by explaining that worry, in its most basic form, is a survival strategy. Our ancestors needed to anticipate dangers and prepare for them, making the ability to worry a useful tool. However, in the modern world, many of the threats we face are not immediate or life-threatening, which can make worry more harmful than helpful. One effective approach Burkeman suggests for managing worry is the acceptance approach. Instead of fighting our worries or trying to eliminate them, we can learn to accept them and observe them without getting carried away. This approach is closely related to mindfulness and meditation practices, which teach individuals to observe their thoughts and feelings without identifying with them. Burkeman also emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between productive and unproductive worries. Productive worries are those that lead to concrete actions to solve a problem. For instance, if you're worried about an upcoming exam, studying is a productive response. In contrast, unproductive worries are those that do not lead to any useful action and simply keep us in a state of anxiety. Learning to identify and let go of these unproductive worries is crucial for reducing stress. For those trapped in a cycle of constant worry, Burkeman recommends the technique of worry time. This involves setting aside a specific period each day to deliberately worry about everything that concerns you. By confining your worries to this time, you can prevent them from dominating your thoughts and activities throughout the day. Outside of this worry time, you should practice redirecting your thoughts to more positive and productive activities. Another important strategy is cognitive restructuring, a technique used in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This involves identifying negative and distorted thoughts that contribute to worry and replacing them with more realistic and balanced thoughts. For example, if you are worried about being rejected at work, you can challenge this thought by considering past successes and recognizing your skills and achievements. Burkeman also discusses the role of self-care in managing worry. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle with a balanced diet, regular exercise, and sufficient rest can help reduce anxiety and improve our ability to cope with stress. Additionally, finding ways to relax and enjoy life, such as engaging in hobbies, spending time in nature, or socializing with friends and family, can provide a much-needed respite from daily worries. Finally, Burkeman invites us to adopt a broader perspective on life and our worries. Often, our worries are magnified by a narrow, short-term view. By remembering that life is complex and many of our current concerns will seem insignificant in the grand scheme of things, we can reduce their power over us. Practicing gratitude and focusing on the positive aspects of our lives can help us maintain a balanced perspective and reduce our tendency to worry excessively. In conclusion, the art of not worrying is not about eliminating worry from our lives, but about learning to manage it effectively. Oliver Burkeman offers a range of strategies and insights to help us reduce worry and live more fully and satisfactorily. By adopting these practices, we can free our minds from the burden of constant stress and find greater peace and joy in our daily lives. Practical techniques for managing worry. To further assist readers in managing worry, Burkeman provides practical techniques that can be incorporated into daily routines. These include mindfulness and meditation. Regular mindfulness practice can help you observe your worries without being overwhelmed by them. Techniques such as focusing on your breath, body scans, and mindful walking can ground you in the present moment and reduce anxiety. Journaling. Writing down your worries can help externalize them, making them more manageable. This practice can also help you identify patterns in your thinking and find constructive ways to address your concerns. Problem-solving skills. Developing effective problem-solving skills can help you address the root causes of your worries. Breaking down problems into smaller, manageable steps can make them feel less overwhelming and more solvable. Relaxation techniques. Techniques such as deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and visualization can help calm your mind and reduce the physical symptoms of anxiety. Building a support system. Burkeman also emphasizes the importance of building a support system to help manage worry. Sharing your concerns with friends, family, or a therapist can provide perspective and emotional support. Being part of a community or support group where you can discuss your worries and hear from others facing similar challenges can be incredibly reassuring. Embracing uncertainty. One of the key insights Burkeman offers is the idea of embracing uncertainty. Recognizing that uncertainty is a natural part of life and that it can bring unexpected opportunities can shift our relationship with worry. Instead of fearing the unknown, we can learn to view it with curiosity and openness. Conclusion. A new relationship with worry. In wrapping up the chapter, Burkeman invites us to develop a new relationship with worry. By integrating acceptance, mindfulness, cognitive restructuring, and self-care into our lives, we can transform how we experience and respond to worry. This shift not only reduces the impact of worry on our mental health, but also enhances our overall well-being and ability to enjoy life. Burkeman's insights provide a comprehensive guide to managing worry, helping us move towards a more balanced and fulfilling existence. Through practical advice and philosophical reflections, he encourages us to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, including the uncertainties and challenges, with grace and resilience.